future people. So I've been asked to come here and talk today about what we're doing. So there's a lot of stuff in here which is about me and the business and etc. But I'm also just going to kind of talk about making and the change that's happened in the past couple of years, really. The change that, for me, is the most exciting thing since I first saw the internet. And it's because of the internet that this change has happened, really. And what's happened is that over the past couple of years, this thing has come together where prices come down, patents have expired, the internet has enabled sharing and democratization, and a maker movement has formed. I'm pretty sure you all know about the maker movement. I'm pretty sure every single person in this room has heard about 3D printing, and I'm sure you know about things like laser cutting and Make magazine, hopefully, and Maker Faire, and et cetera, and all these kind of places where people get together and hack and tinker and play and fabricate things. So when I first heard of this, these places were called Fab Labs, and this was kind of 2007, 8, 9. Places that you'd go to learn how to kind of fabricate something physical, which was unusual. Well, it's kind of unheard of unless you're a professional before. And these places that I saw that are now called maker spaces or hack spaces were full of nerds on computers and kids. The other thing that's happened is that what's happening now is that these maker skills and traditional manufacturing are kind of smashing together. And for the first time, I think, in history, anybody in this room can turn up and make a product and take it to a commercial market now without asking for permission. You need a bit of money, sure, but you don't have to be trained. You can just literally teach yourself. And this is what me and my company are doing, along with a whole bunch of other people. This is a tale from the front line of new manufacturing. So we're a company called MakieLab. We're 2 years old in total. We raised our first bit of money a year and a half ago, and we spent that first bit on 6 months building effectively a competent demo. And we're making games and apps, 3D things where kids can turn up, and adults, and use sliders, just like you'd see in a video game, to make a physical object. So what happens is the app pushes the data to these guys. These are 3D printers. The one on the left is a MakerBot. That costs less than a laptop these days. And the one on the right is a professional-grade nylon sintering machine, which is to say it uses nylon powder and lasers to dance around in the nylon powder and melt a shape. And the thing about this is the one on the right costs 150,000 euros and up. But in about 5 years' time, it'll cost about 500 quid and up. So I just got back from the main industrial show where these things are on show, and one printer has just come out that does pretty much the same technology, and it's on the market for 15,000 euros. So it's gone from 150 to 15 in one step. And this is because of the expiration of patents. This stuff will accelerate. Our shapes get pushed to those printers, and they come back to us as dolls. So the avatars produce dolls, each one created by a kid or an adult, and we make them right here in London. We've got suppliers in Amsterdam, London, and just outside of London, and what those guys have is those machines. And so those machines are proliferating across the world, which means that we can print those toys all over the place. This is a distributed manufacturing network, like the internet is, with computers. This is a big change to traditional toy manufacture, which I will go into in a second. And what this also produces is that the toys themselves are individualized. Each one is completely unique. It has a little identity in its head, and it has a digital version, its avatar, from get-go. These toys are born digital, which means that they exist in 3D virtual space and 3D physical space at the same time. What does that mean? What can we do with that? This is like new boundaries. We're playing and finding out what we can do with that. But this, to me, blows my mind on a daily basis. Now, I had to put this up because what we did in the past year, we put the demo live, and it was, sellotape and string. And we've since spent the last year turning it into something more like a product. Monster High, which is Mattel's biggest doll line other than Barbie and American Girl, it took 4 years, I'm told, from concept to shelf, which is kind of normal. That's how it usually works. And the point about a toy with a capital T is it has to be certified for safety for kids, right? This is felt like something that was, I don't know, magic that you know, huge manufacturers achieve. It's not. If you use basic materials, simple materials, so we use powdered nylon, and you don't use anything toxic, you can pass toy safety, which is exactly what the dolls did this year. CE certification is Europe and the Middle East. We're working on America and Japan. Lion Mark is a mark of quality. It happened. 3D printed toys pass toy safety, so that's done. Anybody who makes stuff in the same white nylon, you're pretty safe unless you make a stabby object. So where did this come from? In about 2009, possibly 10, no, 2009, I was given these two books. The Real Toy Story is a tale of 3 decades of manufacturing from Britain and Germany and America, and how it moved wholesale to China. And it's a really fascinating story, and how, you know, the majority of toys, 95%, are made in China, and McDonald's is the biggest toy manufacturer in the world, and just stuff that will really kind of open your eyes. And the industry has been a story of mergers and acquisitions. So Mattel is just enormous. Hasbro is enormous. Lego, $1.7 billion thing. At the same time, Cory Doctorow wrote Makers. Makers is the tale of people who make things. And one of the things that was inspirational in there were the main characters were hacking toys and putting them back together to repurpose them, and just sort of getting Elmos to do stuff. And if you see a kid playing with toys, you realize that's what they're doing. Fast forward a little bit, but when Cory wrote that book, one of his readers modeled that image, just copied it themselves, created a 3D image, printed it at shapeways.com, stuck it in the post, and sent it to Cory. I'm married to Cory, so he showed it to me. I immediately started trying to take it apart. He said, "No, you can't do that. It's hanging on the wall." But the point was, this was a physical object right there, right then. It was a toy, and it was amazing. The traditional system looks like this. So I have a daughter. I don't really want to go shopping in this kind of scenario. I don't think that guy does as well. He always looks so kind of frozen in horror. The way it works, I learn a bunch of stuff about the toy industry through this process. But other than the kind of pinkification of stuff, you need money and or permission to get on those shelves in the first place. So Toys R Us or Hamleys have total control. And in half the time, I hadn't realized this, they're a real estate business. And so in fact, the big manufacturers come in and they will buy that shelf space and put what they want on it. There's no kind of necessarily any curation going on. There are in independents, but not in the big stuff. So if you want your product on the shelf next to these guys, you have to outbid them. Obviously, that's not really in the realm of possibility for most folks. So maybe we can just go around that. Hello, the internet. The other thing about traditional manufacturers, the way they produce something is you will go to China, and for a doll, for instance, you will make a stainless steel mold, well, industrial steel mold, for each part. And each mold will cost 10 grand. So depending on how many parts, this is why Barbie doesn't have any legs, knees and arms for the elbows for the most part, because it's cheaper to make a solid piece. Although the boys, Action Man gets knees and elbows, which always annoys me as well. So we set out to make dolls, girls and boys, that both have knees and elbows, because then they can both ride motorbikes. But so solid parts are cheaper, and they all add up. If you want to have usually a doll body molded, it's going to cost somewhere like 35 to 50 grand. And then you run off the plastic pieces. And so you can make millions and millions of exactly the same thing. To make a personalized or customized or individualized toy was basically beyond the reach of traditional manufacture, because otherwise you'd be making molds for each individual person. 3D printing comes along and changes this. And that's just a thing. So it's opened up a whole avenue of possibility that just didn't exist before. American Girl is the one that came closest. This is a huge $500 million a year product only in America. Now owned by Mattel. And what they do is they have 40 different dolls that look almost identical. So your customization is you walk into the shop and you go, okay, curly hair, brown eyes, I've got one of 3 to choose from. That's an incredibly expensive way of finding that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for, variety within a brand. Then you go and have a look at stuff that's happening on the internet. This is Blythe doll clothes on Etsy. The quality and variety and creativity displayed here is completely different to the kind of clothes that you'll see on the shelf in the stores. And again, that's because there's a kind of one-to-one relationship with customers. and a maker culture going on. So different questions that they're asking themselves. Whereas on the stores, really the biggest question they're asking themselves is, how can I sell as many of these as possible? So we went live. Now this is one of the things that is great about software development, sorry, I'm slightly tired today, but I'm losing words. But the thing that they're looking for in software development, lean, is where you try something out, you put something live, you A/B test it, you iterate. This is easy with software, this is easy with web pages, because you put up something, you look at how it's being used, you can make a change, you can carry on and improve over time. Obviously, to date, with physical product, this was really hard. You have your stuff shipped over from China, you have it in a warehouse, you've got to sell that. You can't change it. If somebody says, you know, I don't really like the clothes it's in, tough, there's 250,000 of them in a warehouse. Not anymore. If you have a physical product and you are prepared for the excruciating embarrassment of going live with something that's not perfect, just like code, Reid Hoffman from LinkedIn said, if you're not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you launched too late. If you want, you can go live with a physical product and work with your customers to find out what they want. And this journey is fascinating. So we went live, as I said, a year ago, bone white, 99 quid, no toy safety certification, weird looking. Early adopters turned up and said, yes, but we can make characters, we can tell stories, we can give each one of these little dolls its own personality, and we can make with you. This was in November. One of our users said, look, moustaches for dolls. We wanted to find skin color. We figured the first thing to stop them being bone white and weird was to add skin color naturally. So we started experimenting, because how do you make the white nylon into colored nylon? Nobody knows. The suppliers said, no, we can't put colored powder into the machines because once it's in there, it never comes out again. And so we took the white bodies and heads and started boiling them in stuff. PG tips, Caucasian, blueberries, onions, all sorts of things. As it turns out, Dylon works for the most part. Dylon produces a nice pale brown and a nice dark brown. The medium brown comes out green. Don't know why. Some kind of chemical reaction going on. We looked at it and we were like, oh dear, green. Let's see if people like it anyway. So we left it in. We did that A/B testing thing. We just put it up. And as it turns out, if you start an avatar with green, more people get through to the finished doll process than if you were to start with white or a skin color. So it stays. Our early adopters are all on the forums under a thread called We're Doing Science. And this is a picture of one of the ladies in her house dyeing, I think, here with inks. But they all joined in, all these makers joined in to try and solve the same problems, because this has not been done before. It's one giant experiment. We're making clothes, putting up the files, seeing what people do with them, and then they kind of come back to us. And this cycle of making is producing product. The forumers are sharing with each other and doing all sorts of stuff that we couldn't have predicted. And at the same time, telling their stories through the characters, through the dolls half the time, which is exactly what kids do as well when they play with dolls. They tell stories. It's just amazing to watch. So in February, we put up an app. By this point, we had skin color. And we put it through onto the tablet. And characters started emerging from all over the place. With backstories, with own little outfits, we started to understand which clothes fitted Makies that were already commercially made, all this kind of stuff that we would never have found out. This is Mushroom, and her maker made some doll products using IKEA cutlery drawer things. And this is by a lady called Viridian House, and she started to show us what the dolls can look like with what's called a face-up, professional face painting, but also Boots false eyelashes. So now we trot down to Boots once a week and buy eyelashes. No words for this. But this little red suitcase was printed on a MakerBot and then just painted with a little bit of green paint, gold paint. The other thing that we did was we wanted to encourage hacking, and so the dolls' heads were, when we launched, perfectly sized for a LilyPad Arduino. And Arduino is a now $25 chip that you can program to do stuff. And one of the first things that happened was a lady called Kat, actually locally from Brick Lane, turned up and said, look, I made my Makey, I gave her some Nekomimi Japanese automated cat ears. So a couple of servos and some felt cat ears, and now when she walks into the room and claps her hands, the little ears turn towards the sound. One of our other users turned up and said, yeah, the mouth needs to, you know, I took a scalpel to it. And so she scalpeled out the eyes, you can see they're much bigger, and scalpeled the mouth deeper. And we think this is gorgeous. And so that eye shape and mouth shape is going back into the software. The other thing that happened is we're now in Selfridges, which is sort of, frankly, miraculous, but at the same time, how is this happening? The world's first 3D printed toy in a retail store. Now, we didn't design it to be in traditional retail. This is designed to go on demand to the end customer via the internet. What do you put on a shelf for an on-demand product? So this is an ongoing experiment. You can go and have a look. We have pre-made some characters that are from the game that's coming out. So the non-player characters are going on the shelf. Ada, Curie, Tesla, and Hopper, all named after engineers of some fine sort. So we've got pre-mades, and then you've got the little digital thing right there, and kids can sit and play and make on the spot. It's a journey, as I said, in this new manufacturing, and there is some stuff totally stacked against us right now in 2013, but this is part of the process of Moore's Law and grand experimentation together and learning. People generally spend about 20 quid on a doll, so that's what we've got to get to, and that's what will happen over the next couple of years. Brand building usually costs a fortune. Lego Friends spent $40 million launching their Friends line in the States. $40 million on pink Lego, which you think, is just going to kind of sell itself, really, in the Lego stores. It's pretty obvious what it is. I didn't really think that Lego needed to market its product, but it did, and Friends is now at number 3 of the Lego products. Our version of this is to build games anyway from the get-go, because games are creative and viral with kids, and we'll see whether we end up having to spend a lot of money on marketing. But the big brute force spend is a result of the old way of doing things, of having a warehouse full of things that you have to shift no matter what. If you have digital goods that only turn into physical goods when somebody presses a button, that problem has changed. So we work on figuring this out together. 3D printing is hyped, very much. There's lots of talk about printing your own kidneys and houses on the moon and guns and all this kind of stuff. And I was listening to a podcast of the News Quiz the other day, and the folks on News Quiz were like talking about 3D printing. They're like, oh, ho, ho, 3D printers can print anything. They can probably print themselves. Isn't that hilarious? Ho, 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 thinking it was a joke. And of course, they can print themselves. There was a lot of hype last year for this very reason. Everyone went, oh, they can print themselves. They can print anything. Enterprise 3D printing, the big fat machines that are printing stuff that is in Boeing planes, for instance, is proven and solid. The consumer end stuff, this idea that there will be a 3D printer on everybody's desk within the next couple of years, it'll probably just take more like 10. Or maybe we'll just have corner shops full of the damn things. The point is, though, right now, is that you guys can go and download models or make your own, get onto Shapeways or any of the similar other services on the internet, and make a physical product right now. You do not need to ask permission from anybody, and this is a massive, massive step change. So from day one, we had customers all over the world, mainly English-speaking ones, but 10% from the States, 10% rest of the world. A year later, it's more like 60% from the States, but we've sent dolls to Brazil, Singapore, New Zealand. We haven't broken yet into places like Japan, I guess because of the language barrier, but that's just another little step, right? Bunch of things that we're going to do. This just relates to other things that can happen. So digital printing of cloth means we can get kids to draw on cloth, send a cloth kit so they can make the clothes to put on the doll that they've made. This is creative, and this gets me really happy. Laser cut doll furniture, where you design your own house. This is, again, something that feels constructive and positive. A bunch of other things that have happened that are contributing to all of this is the breakdown of barriers. So Alibaba gets you into China. The cheapness of the chips now means that toys can start to come alive. Toy game combos are a thing, and kids can start thinking about making their own. This stuff is magic until you build it yourself. Kids now have access to computing, and they have access to the mode of making physical object. Games as a service, toys as a service, co-creation as a service. You can see what's happening here. This kid is thinking, what am I going to make? What am I making? What can I make next? She can do anything. And this one already has. That's it. Thank you.